Hey, so today we are going to kick off a series of videos on meal prepping, meal planning. And it only makes sense for me to do this because, 22 years of making prepared foods, got a lot of tips, I got a lot of tricks. It's also because, for our family, our parents are getting a little bit older. It's nice to make some stuff for them that they can just pull out of the freezer. They can microwave or thaw and heat or bake from frozen, that kind of stuff. So today we're going to start off the first video doing something that I think is just perfect for this. It's a beef stew. And this was part of our prepared foods for many years. It's great to make in big batches. It freezes really well. There's multiple ways to reheat it. You can eat it fresh as well if you don't want to freeze all of it. So we're going to get started here. We'll get down to the pot and we'll get cooking. Okay, so maybe the most important step of building this stew is browning off the beef. So I have my beef stew meat that I have pretty much aggressively seasoned with a little bit of salt and pepper. I have some oil and some butter in my pot here. And this is going to be the pot I'm going to use to make the full stew. But when it comes to browning all this meat, there's a couple things we're looking for here. I want to get my oil and butter nice and hot. That's going to prevent a lot of sticking from happening with the beef. I also want to make sure that I do this in batches. I'm not going to add all my beef in here because what ends up happening, instead of searing the meat and getting that beautiful caramelization, it just starts pulling juices out of the meat and you kind of get this little gray scum going in here. It's just not appealing and it doesn't develop that nice, rich, deep flavor. So this, of all the steps of this particular dish, this is the one that's going to take the most time. And this is also why when it comes to making things like stews, I like to make bigger batches because if I'm going to do this work, might as well do it once and then have enough for 3, 4, or 5 meals. So here we go. It's nice and hot. I get that sizzle when I put it in. I don't want to lose too much heat in my pan. That's another reason we're not going to overcrowd this. So I'm just going to put these. Now, if you put this in and you lost that sizzling sound, take the meat out, get the heat back up, and then put it back in. And you can see I am not going to overcrowd this in any way, shape, or form. Going to give the meat time to caramelize. And this is what's going to add that beautiful depth to this dish, is that beautiful richness we're creating right here, right now. You can see I've got a fair amount of oil and butter in there. I do have a little bit more off to the side in case I need to add a little bit. I do tend to add a little bit more than I probably need, but I just find it really helps get in that color on there. So a little bit of investment in some butter and oil, but it's definitely well worth it. Then once we start getting some color, like we have here, we're just going to flip it over and we're going to get as many sides as we can beautifully caramelized. And then as this browns out, I will remove it from the pan, I'll put it on this tray, and then I'll keep adding more meat. So we'll come back in a few minutes. I have probably a couple pounds of meat here to do. It's going to take me a few minutes, so we'll come back when I have it all done and we'll get to the next step. So this is our last batch of the beef. I'm just going to remove this now from here. And again, please take the time to do this. Get this nice color on your meat here. It's going to make such a difference in the end. Now there's a little bit of fat in the bottom here. I just want to get rid of that really quickly. Like so. And then you'll see all these beautiful little brown bits on the bottom. I'm going to take my wine here, add that to my hot pan. going to take my spoon and I'm just going to break up all those little bits on the bottom because I want those to be part of my stew. There's so much flavor in there. Beautiful. And I'm just going to move this off to the side. I'm just going to pour it over the beef here for now. We'll add all that back in a second here. So after I deglazed my pan, I added some fresh butter. We've melted that down. Again, we've got the heat up again so that when I add my vegetables here, we can get some sautéing going. What I've added here, I've added some mushrooms, I've got some carrots, some onions, some celery, and a little bit of parsnip. And the key here is just to kind of cut the vegetables so they're about the same size as the beef, just so we have some uniformity in the cook-in, and it all kind of looks aesthetically pleasing in the bowl. Now, we did salt and pepper the beef. Now we're going to add another layer of flavor here by adding some salt and pepper to the vegetables. It's all about building flavors right from the very beginning. We're going to saute this. This is probably going to take maybe 5 to 8 minutes to cook it down a little bit. Get a little bit of caramelization on the onions. So when we get to that point, we'll come back and we'll add the flour, make the roux, and start putting this together. Okay, so our vegetables have cooked down beautifully now in that butter. We're starting to get a little bit of caramelization on the onions. So now we're ready to add our flour here. And we're making a roux here to thicken this up. So we're just going to stir this in. And at this point, I've been cooking at fairly a high heat. I'm going to turn this down to more of a medium heat now, because this is where the opportunity to scorch this kind of comes up. So we just want to be a little bit careful at this point. And I'm just going to stir this around so it's nicely incorporated with all that butter and juices that are in there. We also want to cook it just for a minute or two here. And it's just going to help cook out a little bit of the starchiness of the flour. And I'm just giving the bottom a scrape here. If there's any more nice little brown bits that we've gotten from cooking the vegetables, just making sure we get those pulled up. Now we're going to start adding our liquid in here. So I'm using some stock. I have some beef stock here. If you don't have beef stock, you can use chicken stock. You could even use water if you had to. If you're going to use water in this particular one, it really becomes important that you brown the meat, that you've got some depth of flavor on the vegetables. And I would maybe add a tablespoon or so of tomato paste in there if I was using the water, just to kind of help with the color and a little bit more of the depth of the flavor. And I'm just slowly adding my liquid, incorporating after each addition. I just want to make sure there's no lumps in here. Just like so. And then once we have all of our liquid added, then it will return the beef, the red wine that we use to deglaze the pan in there. Now you can see there's a little bit of work involved in this, the time it takes to brown the beef, chopping the vegetables, sautéing them up, and that's why these are great to make bigger batches of. And the nice thing with this, even if you didn't want to freeze this, just say you're having a family dinner coming up, this is one of those dishes that just actually gets better as it sits for a few days in the fridge and lets the the flavors come together a little bit, and that's kind of the beauty of some of those French bistro style dishes, the stews, the coq au vins, that kind of thing. Everything is kind of cooked ahead, cooled down and reheated, but it's the type of things that just get better as they sit. So we're almost got all of our liquid here. You can see it's nice and smooth, no lumps. Add the rest of it now. And then once this is all incorporated, I will give it a final little bit of salt, pepper, a little bit of dried thyme. At this point, I've got my oven turned to 350 degrees. You can simmer this on the stovetop very gently, but again, there's a really good chance it could scorch if you lose control of the heat or you don't keep coming back and stirring it. So I like to finish it in the oven. Going to add all that beautiful beef in there, that red wine, and then any of the juices that have accumulated in the bottom of the pot. Oh my goodness. At the restaurant, we used to serve this. Always tried to find ways, because, you know, people were paying a little bit of money. You didn't always want to just put a bowl of stew in front of them. So we would do like a parsnip puree, and we'd serve it on like a long platter, family style, with the puree down the middle. Then we'd make a little bit of a canal in there and then put the stew down the center. That was really nice. Celeriac puree would be beautiful as well. If you don't want to use regular mushrooms, you get access to some wild mushrooms, throw some wild mushrooms in there. You could throw some peas in here. I mean, really, once you've got the ratios down, you can start playing around with whatever you have. So we've added the salt, we've added the pepper, we've added a little bit of dried thyme, and then I almost forgot, I'm going to add some Yukon Gold potatoes in here. Again, diced up. I like Yukon Golds. You can use russets. I just love the creaminess of a yellow flesh potato. In fact, all my prepared foods, from mashed potatoes to pot pies, it's always the yellow fleshed or the Yukon Gold that I am using. Okay, so we're just going to bring this up to a simmer. Once it comes up to a simmer, I will just see it's already starting to come pretty close to a simmer. Pop my lid on. We're going to throw this in the 350-degree oven. We'll cook it for 2 to 3 hours. We'll come back. I'll show you what it looks like when it's done. Okay, so this has been in the oven for about 2.5 hours now. And you can just see how beautiful that texture is of that, I guess, gravy. The beef is nice and tender. The vegetables are nicely holding together. So this is ready to go right now. It's better if you eat it tomorrow. And then let's talk about how we can freeze this and use it for later. Okay, so when it comes to cooling down the beef stew, you want to use something, you want to transfer it to something that has a lot of surface area, preferably fairly shallow. And you can leave it out on your counter. If you have like a rack, you can put underneath so you get some good airflow. Leave it on your counter for about an hour or so with a spoon in it, just constantly stirring. Well, not constantly, come back every, 10, 15 minutes. Give it a stir just to kind of take that real hot edge off. After about an hour and a half, you can put it in your fridge. Again, leave the spoon in, go in there, just give it a stir around once in a while. Just to cool it down quick. The stirring just helps not get any hot spots. You don't want to be cold on the outside, hot on the inside. That's when germs and stuff can start going crazy. Now for store-in, there's a few things you can do. Sometimes we used to just do them in these deli tubs that are freezer safe. They're a little bit stronger than ones you might get like a coleslaw in. Label them, throw them in the freezer, then you just got to thaw them, pop them into a pot, reheat them that way. Benefit to that, these are pretty cheap, but I always find sometimes when you're trying to heat it in the pot, it has a tendency to scorch or you burn it. You can also put it into these, some kind of microwavable. So right from the freezer into microwave, heat it, stir, it works out beautifully. Sometimes we'll do it. When I did it for our prepared foods, I would get sous vide bags. So just for your vacuum sealer at home, once it was cool, it works perfectly in there. You get the proper sous vide bags that are a little bit thicker than regular vacuum bags, and then it's a boil in the bag, and then no cleanup with those. So, and they freeze flat, which is really nice. So that is our beef stew. Hit me up in the comments, let me know how you liked it, and enjoy.